Hey, this is CJ. Are you interested in step-by-step walkthroughs of the tactics we're using to grow our businesses? Then check out Season 7 of the Grow an Online Business podcast. Formerly released exclusively to our Minding Your Business After Hours patrons, these episodes are available to listen to now for free. Search Grow an Online Business on Spotify or follow the link in the podcast notes to go directly to episode 1 of Season 7. This week on the Minding Your Business podcast, from funnels to follow through, how we're using AI to work smarter. Welcome to the Minding Your Business podcast. I'm CJ Jolliffe with everybody's favorite co-host,
Aaron Gerald.
Hey, we did better than last week.
I'll tell you what, I'm happy to be here today because I'm still alive, and
That's a good thing.
There's a lot of things going on that have piqued my interest and got me excited to look into.
Okay,
This past week, I've been doing some things. Obviously, I'm working, but besides working, my brain has been tick, 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 clicking because as we've been going down the road of trying to figure out how to get these quiz funnels working and doing the stuff with the logic and all of the stuff.
Yeah.
I'm getting excited because trying to figure out the back end logic, I just had to put all that in your bucket because I was like,
yeah.
I can come up with some questions, but I can't figure out how to grade them other than by hand. And man, you've sent me some exciting links about creating stuff with AI and how to use it as part of an overall series of things. We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute, but I've been creating, I think I told you, I don't remember if I did or not, but anyway, you know how I do. I spiral and spin down little rabbit holes for a while. Yes. But for the last little bit, I've also been creating courses, relationship courses, and putting them on different platforms. One of those platforms is Udemy.
Sure.
And I think I told you that's like so far the only thing that's made me any money at all.
Okay.
Aside from, my personal websites, but that exterior platforms, I created some courses, put them on Udemy, left them alone for, 2 years, then switched them from free to paid. And then they started making me a little bit of money. And that little bit of money that it's made me in the last like 6-8 months is still more than I've ever made on YouTube.
Okay.
And I know we had talked that I was pouring money into YouTube and hoping that this panned out and came to something.
Right.
And I wouldn't give up all of the things that I learned regardless, because I feel like I bought an education.
Right.
Which when you go to school, you pay for education. You're learning from somebody and getting information quicker than you would just on your own, just trying to learn through hard knocks, life experience. But I feel like the mixture of life experience and what I learned from my direction are both good and bad, positive and negative. I think is going to help me with channel growth and with brand growth in the future.
Okay.
Because it was an alternate perspective than I get from myself, from you, and then from others. And so it was interesting. But that being said, I've been working on the courses and then trying to get them. There is a tie-in, trust me. Working on the
I'm just watching the clock in the podcast. It's the third over. I don't know what are talking about.
Sorry.
No, just kidding.
Yeah. I've been working on the courses, been promoting and trying to do them. Anyway, I created one that I thought was really, really good. And I thought, you know what? I want an outside perspective on what I'm creating, because I make them and I give them to my clients and they all seem to like them, but those are all my offline clients. So I thought, what would it be like to get a review from someone online who doesn't really know me, doesn't know what I'm doing, doesn't know my brand, doesn't know anything. If I send them my course and I have them review it, what would I get back?
Right.
And there's a cost to everything, a price to everything. And I was impressed with what I got back.
Okay.
It's interesting because they won't name me. They wouldn't say who I am. And then basically all they would do is admit that they were looking over the material that I had sent, and according to the material and according to the author, this is what it's about. This is what it is. Because they were like, we're not going to promote you, but at the same time, for as little as I was paying them, but they would give me an honest review.
Okay.
That's unbiased. And so that way, even if my anybody familiar with my brand were to listen to the review, they wouldn't necessarily, oh, it's because it's him. And so then it would bias their opinion.
That makes sense.
And so I think I uploaded that to my Growing Online Business, that review podcast. That's the last episode that I'm doing of Growing Online Business, and even remotely that genre. I know we've talked about what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using that for the after hours minding your business. I think that makes more sense, but I wanted to post it out there to the audience. I wanted to put it on a platform, and I wasn't sure where to put it. Do I put that on my YouTube? Do I put it on? So for me, it made the most sense to pop it onto Growing Online Business for now, and then get a review, get some feedback. Okay. And so I know I sent it to you.
Yep, I have it queued up.
And I think we're gonna, if you're okay to do that, if it's loaded up, we're gonna listen to, I don't know, a minute or 45 seconds, 60 seconds, 70 seconds of it, so that you can see the quality of the review. From the reviewers. Okay.
Well, here we go. Let's see. We'll transition and play this.
That I had do the review. So anyway, give it a listen. Let me know. Thanks.
Okay, let's dive right into something that, well, it touches everyone's life. Relationships.
Absolutely.
Today, we're doing a deep dive, and our source material takes a really unique approach. It's excerpts from an audio course called The Unspoken Language of Love, Deepening Your Connection.
That's right. And what's so interesting here is how it takes these powerful psychological principles, stuff often used in understanding, like social influence or power dynamics.
Right.
And it adapts them very thoughtfully, specifically to help you build healthier, more understanding, really fulfilling romantic partnerships.
And the key thing, it seems, is this focus on ethical application.
Exactly.
It's not about manipulation. It's presented as using these insights for genuine connection, for empathy. So our mission today really is to unpack the core ideas from this material. We want to see how these principles, which you might see in, wider human interaction, can be applied effectively, ethically, within the intimacy of a partnership.
Yeah, finding those surprising perspectives on how we connect, how we communicate, how we build bonds that actually last.
Think of it like learning a new language almost.
Kind of. A deeper fluency in the language you didn't even know was being spoken right there in your relationship.
I like that. It's about building with your partner, not working on them.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where does the source material even begin? Seems like a huge topic.
It starts, maybe surprisingly, for a course on relationships. It starts with you.
With me. Okay.
Yeah, the core idea is, before you can really understand your partner, you absolutely must understand yourself. It really emphasizes how our own emotional self, as it calls it, is this massive driver of our thinking, our decisions.
And it can lead us astray sometimes.
Often leads us into irrational patterns, especially in how we interact with the people closest to us.
So my own internal state is kind of coloring everything I see in the relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it brings up this concept that everyone, ourselves included, wears a kind of mask. And being truly honest about your own character, acknowledging your strengths, sure, but also critically your weaknesses, your biases. That's presented as the essential first step. Self-mastery, basically.
That you need.
So that is, I think, incredibly cool. Now, tell us more.
Okay, so I wanted the review, and in looking at other people, trying to get people to even message me back, respond to emails, to be even willing to look at a course, listen to the course, and then give me their honest opinion and feedback was nearly impossible. I tried reaching out to multiple people. I've asked even my in-person clients, hey, would you guys mind doing that? And I can't get people to do it. And even when they do, they go, it's good.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm like, super. which brings me to who I had do it.
Okay.
And who I actually had do it was an AI.
Okay.
And so those aren't people. That's why I said I have a couple who reviewed my course. It wasn't two people reviewed my course. I had the AI review my course. And currently that's an AI out from Google. And it is currently at this moment at time of broadcast and time of use, free to the public.
Okay.
As far as I understand, I know that I was on a wait list for a really long time to get in there, but you have to sign in with your Gmail account and then you gain access to it after so much time or whatever. It may be easy to get to now, but it's NotebookLM.
Okay.
So it's like notebooklm.google.com, I think. And I can double check that. We'll put it in the show notes.
So that's obviously a language model, but are you saying that the like audio and everything was done by
Yeah, it's actually an AI tool created for deeper understanding of source material. So you can take any source material that you want to study or that you need to know. Let's say you just started a new job and there's a handbook and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to read this handbook. Oh my goodness.
Right.
You can pop the handbook in as a PDF. It takes that, reads it, sources that as the memory. Now everything you chat with the AI is about that. So you can type in your questions. You can do it live, talk and ask questions. Or there's a new feature on the right-hand side that's called Chat About It. And it's basically, it creates this AI version of two people. It takes a little bit of time. I put my course in, popped in the audio course, it listened to it, reviewed it, it's absorbed it, whatever. And then it said, give us some time. We're going to review. We're going to create this transcript of these two people talking about your course to help people get a deeper understanding of the source material. So it then created that. It took about 20 minutes. It came back and you just hit play and you just listen to it. Now there's another beta feature which will allow you to ask questions to the presenters.
Wow.
In the middle of them talking, but it's still a little bit glitchy, which is why I think it's still free right now because it's in beta. So you talk to them and then it adds a third voice and you're like, well, who is that? Because it has a hard time doing it all in real time. But I think the pre-formatted explanation was phenomenal. Now you can use this as learning for book summaries or for information. Let's say you have you just start, I keep saying starting a new job because I've talked to a couple of people about that who've had started their new job. And I'm like, dude, if you guys have to read all the information about joining this new union, you need all the union bylaws to figure out what you can and cannot do, what's protected, what's unprotected. Pop that as a PDF, which they sent you as PDF, pop that in as the source material, and then ask any questions you want. Let's say you're switching jobs. You had a union bylaw, you're transferring to a new union. You can put both those PDFs in as source material and then say, give me a summary of the differences between these two, and it will spill it out. And it does it in writing. You can actually do it live and talk to it, and it'll tell you. Or you can say, reading over the source material, give me a deep dive into what it is, what it's saying. And then it throws those two voices. And I don't know if it picked those two particular voices for me, or if that's the standards. I don't know. But I've done it twice now, one for my material and one for a book that I just read so that I could see if it understood the book the same way I did. Yes, by the way, really interesting. And it threw out some things where I was like, I don't really remember that being in the chapter. So I don't know if it's hallucinating or not, but I can tell you that I listened to the entire thing on my course and it nailed it. Which means it probably was paying 100% attention to what was in the source material. Whereas when I'm listening to an audiobook, that's how I read the last book I read, right? I listened to the audio version to and from work and whatnot over the last several weeks. So me being able to go, well, what was in chapter 1 when I listened to 55 chapters? Like what was in chapter 2? What was in chapter 3? What was the main point that should have been taken from that? Well, the AI's interpretation of what the main points are might be slightly different than where my mind or my attention was at any given moment. But it's a really interesting way of learning the material in a different way, because I'm very much an audio person versus a visual. a reading person. I read stuff and I'm like, oh. Whereas if I put it in, I listen to people talk about it. Man, I love it.
Yeah.
So
I can consume so much faster through audio because I can play it at 1.5, 2 speed and just, while I'm
right.
still doing things,
Yes, but what's crazy is just listening to those two people converse about it gave me a deeper understanding because
right.
they did such an
Even
amazing
though you
job
wrote
where
it.
they would bring it up and ask it in the form of a question. So it like when it's talking, it's like, so actually it's about relationships. And then the other voice is like, yes, relationships as they pertain to, so it triggers your brain and it enacts like it fires off neural pathways that wouldn't have otherwise been
Sure.
fired off when you were just hearing the material being presented versus
Right.
it being discussed. I feel like the discussion of the material teaches it to you in a much deeper way.
That's incredibly interesting because I mean that's kind of how I'm using stuff, right? Like I've spent
Uh-huh.
a lot of time in like talk mode or chat mode, whatever it is,
Right.
telling chat GPT my like beliefs, my philosophies,
Right.
here's my framework, and I'll remember another piece and then I'll put it in there, hey, remember this, so
Right.
that when I'm like writing copy or when I'm trying to come up with like a handful of ideas, like when I'm kind of brainstorming on my own, that it's not just crappy uh,
Generic stuff. It's stuff.
generic stuff, which is
Yeah.
so like, and I think here's the thing, like, it's so accessible. Literally, I know someone that is using AI to help, them do their marketing and stuff. And I'm like, hey, that's great. Like use the tools that you have access to, right?
Sure.
But it's not guided. It's like you kind of have to have a like I think of like bowling, right? You got to have
You've got to
a
have the
lane,
fences or
right? You
gutter
got to put,
lane.
yeah, the
Yeah.
gutter, yeah, put in the gutter cushions or whatever. And so it has been really, really helpful because it's not suggesting the dumb not like dumb, that's not right. It's not suggesting the generic ideas that it was suggesting before. Now everything it's suggesting is based on my beliefs, which, are not advertising first. It's always kind of advertising last, creating your systems first for all the
Right.
nurturing and follow up and everything. Then if you, have to spend money on advertising and anyway,
Right.
so that I could see that being really useful because I basically could just compile all the stuff that my core beliefs about marketing and building a business and put together like a play sheet. And then I
Right.
could feed that into
The
NotebookLM,
source material. Yeah.
and then I could have a conversation with it about it. Because
And not
that's what
just
I'm
that.
noticing.
So
I get more and more clarity because it's a different perspective.
here's kind of here's the part that I think is untapped. If you take your entire business philosophy
Mhm.
and you plug it in as the source material, and then you have them chat about it, and then you have that 20 minutes or 20, however long it is, you have your upcoming clients listen to that. They come
Right.
in instead of them trying to read your philosophy or but okay, yeah, it's
Right.
storytelling first. But to hear them go, hang on, so it's really about the story then. And they're like, absolutely. It's about when you get to your client, then they come to you with a deeper understanding of your philosophy, where you're coming from, and understand why.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, and I'm still blown away at like the conversational voice that AI had. I mean, it was like
Mhm.
a point where the male voice was like saying something and the female voice was like, yeah. I'm like, why? That blows me away. I mean, that is what a time to be alive.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I think
Mhm.
this really helps kind of transition us to what we were going to talk about today, which is AI agents. So we've been
Yes.
talking a lot about, quiz funnels and AI. Honestly, we probably should just change the name of the top podcast to like AI today. But um,
Right.
we have been, I think it's one of those things that if you don't embrace AI in some fashion,
You're getting left
you're
behind.
gonna get
That
left
is the
behind. Right.
next. Yeah, this is steam power, right?
Yeah. So basically, I sent you over the weekend, I sent you a deep dive video that I think it was like, you know,
how to
Create your
use
first-
AI agent.
Yeah,
Like
all
what
about
it is
AI
and
agents and
different.
how to create your first one in less than 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, and it was intriguing because the idea of an AI agent I thought was something different than what an AI agent is.
Same.
And I didn't know there was a difference between AI agents, automation,
Hmm.
and AI like clones
Right. So,
and AI models. Like an
right.
AI model is different than an agent because an agent has specific tasks and pulls from specific like source material. It's interesting, really
Yeah.
interesting.
What's
And
funny is I find now I'm like, I was trying to create an AI agent before I knew what one was.
right.
Before I knew, because I didn't have I didn't have the language to describe the rock that was in
What you
front of
were
me.
what
Right.
we were doing, yes.
Yeah.
And
So
in fact, with our quiz funnels, constantly trying to come up with all the back end logic for the grading.
right. And that's what
Insane.
led me down this path, right? So
Yes.
just to clarify really quickly for everyone else that doesn't know, and we didn't know until recently, what an AI agent is. It's
Mhm.
basically made up well, okay, between an automation and an agent, really it just comes down to an automation is what we've had for a long time. You start at point A and you maybe end at point Z, and there's all these tasks along the way, and it's all automated. There can be if and then statements, some conditional logic, but there's no deciding. There's no logic, like real logic where you're solving a problem, other than there's certain pathways that it can go down.
Right. And you can
Well,
still have AI do the automation.
you absolutely can. But where an agent comes in is basically it's taking an automation and it's putting an agent in the middle of it saying, looking at what the prompt is or what the cue is, what the trigger is, and going, okay, based on what I know,
Decide a unique
deciding
outcome.
where things go, what to say, maybe even creating something out of thin air. Um, so
Right.
like a good example, well, here, there's three parts of an AI agent. It's the brain, which is the LLM, the large language model, so like ChatGPT, or Claude or whatever.
Right.
Um, there's the memory, and that's the basically the I guess the framework. Is that how you would explain it? Like here are the parameters because you have to
It's the fenced
narrow
in
its
yard
focus.
that you're able to operate in.
Yes, there you go. It's a great way to put it. And then the tools, and that basically is the automation part, right? It's connected to Drive, it's connected to my Facebook, it's connected to whatever, right? And so
Right.
what we've been running into with quiz funnels is like it is totally easy to create the questions, to create the results, and to have all that built. But the hardest part is trying to figure out the logic where based on the questions, let's say you have four buckets. This is what we keep running into. We have three or four buckets, and each question could have an answer that lands them in one of three or four buckets. As a human, that's really easy for us to go, oh, this question goes in the bucket number A or bucket letter A. This question, the answer puts it in bucket B. This question puts another one in bucket A. We can easily add that up and go, oh, yes, their result should be A because that was the highest. Doing that in a form on a website is more complicated than you'd think. And
Yeah.
so what I had kind of come into when I first started my quiz funnel journey was, what if I just sent like the answers to an AI, had the AI look at all the answers, and then gave me a custom response based on all of these, answers, and
Right.
that would be an AI agent, right? So
Yep.
what I'm looking at this going is, okay, rather than spending 2 to 4 hours trying to get all of the conditional logic um, written out, framed out the right way so it gives the right results, which again is way more complicated than you would think. Or rather than spending hundreds of dollars a year on a add-on for my form, like Gravity Forms or something, just to handle that, and then
Right.
just give here's one of four responses. Why not build an AI agent that based on someone's quiz answers gives them a much more tailored,
Personalized
personalized, customized response. So it could
based on
still
the
follow
information that we
parameters.
give them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we in that memory section, right? In the prompt, we could
Right.
tell the AI, here are the four buckets that they might land in. This is the result, framework for each of those buckets, and here's the call to action for each of those buckets. But personalize it based on their input, and
Right.
that's a very rough prompt, right? But you get the
Oh,
idea.
yes,
Um,
absolutely. Because if they're falling where it's almost equal between two possible outcomes and then very empty on the other two buckets, it can then personalize it with this with a strong emphasis to this,
right,
with an emphasis away from these kind of a thing
right,
when it writes it. And
yeah,
so whereas if they're almost all even but a little bit up in one, then it can be like, man, across the board, like it will do it the way a person would do it, given the
right,
opportunity to have all of the information in front of them and then devise the answer and create it. But it's like, who has the
right.
time for that?
Well, exactly. And so I think that's the idea, is like you're freeing, just like automations free up time. If we're going to talk about operational efficiency and reducing your overhead so you can increase your profit, like, man, there's a lot of opportunity in here. And I have my brain has been on fire this week with
Yeah.
all the things that I think that I could do, because it's not just automations anymore. It's now taking an automation and giving it some um, like almost human capabilities,
Right.
maybe even better than some humans. So
Oh, for
um,
sure.
yeah,
Because the
man,
memory being accessed is unbiased by mood
right, right, right.
and
For now,
forgetfulness. Like it's not going to forget specific things versus a person goes, no, 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 I know all of that. Hang on, hang on, hang on. There's no hang on, hang on. It's in a second. Boop, access
right,
gone. Boop, that.
right, yeah,
So not that it's infallible, but it's much more likely to stay within parameters
right.
versus.
Well, and you said a great word earlier. You said hallucinating. Was the AI hallucinating, right? Um,
Mhm.
I think that's where you have to limit the amount of memory. So the amount of how many prompts stay in its memory. It only keeps the 5 most recent prompts or whatever.
Right.
Um, I mean, I had a problem with ChatGPT the second time this week. It happened a few months ago. But basically, I had for like a description and title for the last podcast episode, right? Because I don't want to.
Right.
I'm going to spend too much time if I try to sit down and go, in this episode, Aaron and CJ do this and they talk about that. And like, I don't remember
Right.
when we're done with this. I might have a little bit of a clue of what we talked about, but
Right.
I'm not going to remember everything.
What's great is if I listen to a podcast from 2 podcasts ago, it feels fresh
Yeah.
when I hear it. Like
I,
ooh,
I
hang on.
basically black out
I
for
don't
about
even
an
remember
hour.
saying
Yeah.
half of the stuff. Like,
Right. Exactly. But anyway, so I put in the transcript and it spit out its results. It gave me, the description and keywords and everything. And I was reading the description and looking at where it had highlights, like, hey, this is a really good section, and here's what it's about. And I was like, I don't remember doing that. I don't remember saying that. And so I look it up, and it was a complete fallacy. It was completely false. And
yeah.
I look at another
Now,
one,
are you just
and
continuing with the same chat
yeah, so
and
I have
then
like
going
a
back to it,
chat
back to it,
that's
back to
like
it?
my
Oh,
my Mind Your Business episode helper. That's what I call it. And so I did it. I told it. I said, I think you're mistaken. Re-listen, or read the transcript and follow the prompt again. And it did it again it was a completely different description and keywords, and it was also a complete lie. But
yeah.
honestly, I was reading the things and I was going, man, I wish we'd talked about that. That's really good. So
Right.
what's funny is I took
So,
the exact same prompt and script or transcript and put it in a new chat, and it did everything correctly. So there is something to that hallucinations. Like when you have too much data in one chat, it somehow
yeah. And was that a custom created my chat
it
that you gave
was
direction to, or was that just your standard chat
it
GPT
was
40?
it was chat 40, right? Chat 40. And it was just like you hit no.
So,
I'm not that fancy, man.
I'm like, so the way I would do it then from now on is to create a prompt to create one called title and description, or you can T&D, whatever you want to name it. You can
Right.
name it Vincent. And then you put in all of that to create that prompt. Now, each time you want to chat with that particular chat, you click on the upper where it's like your chats and there's 6 of them and it's like, oh, title and description. Now it opens a new chat with that one. And then you say, here's the transcript. And it already knows its job and it spells all of it out for you. And then it puts it down as a saved chat that you don't open again.
So
you
is
open
that
another new one each time.
is that under like projects?
No, above projects.
Okay, well,
My chat. I'll show you how to do it.
so one
Oh.
thing I do want to cover before we're
Mhm.
done is just about closing a deal, right? So been very, very fortunate this last week. I think I mentioned last week that Looky Social
Right.
had, we put out a couple quotes. Well,
Yes.
we closed both of those deals, which is amazing.
Congrats.
And also had another lead in come in for coaching, and that, like, I got to tell you, things are really, really picking up. So it's great, right? But
Yes.
I was just thinking through, because it's been a long, really, really long time since I've actually created a proposal, or a quote or a bid, whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to call
Right.
it. And so here's kind of the background. Like 10 years ago, when it was Creatively Blind, and that was the marketing agency, we would
Right.
go through and we would, have a big brainstorm session, whiteboard, and come up with the entire strategy, how, like, all the pieces and how they tied together. And then we would have a pitch meeting. So we'd have a discovery meeting, and it would take probably an hour, hour and a half. I'll ask a lot of questions. We would then do a, whiteboard brainstorm session where we'd come up with the ideation. And sometimes it was more than one. And then it would be anywhere from 4 to 8 hours to put together a proposal. Each proposal was 100% like custom for that client.
Right.
And it was just a lot. It was just a lot. And so when we spun off and started doing websites only with Infinity Systems, basically, I wanted to create something that didn't require making proposals.
Yep.
I did refine my proposal process in the interim between, in those years, and got it down to the point where all the things are in the proposal system. We used Nifty Quoter for a long, long time. And I would just, based on what the discovery call was, like, okay, they need these, right? And it would take me less than 15 minutes to put together a proposal, send it off to the client. And that actually worked really, really well. So then I've been trying to go even a step further, where there's no proposals at all. There's no quotes at all. It's just literally, here's the pricing, start.
Okay.
That's great. However, you have to
You.
really, really, really have a product or a service that people want, even through the whole, like, nurturing process and all the things. And so what I've landed on, here's the realization that I had this week.
Okay.
Yes, I could just send a prospect, or not prospect, a proposal to a client or to a potential client.
Yes.
That's terrible, though. That's a terrible way to close. They're going to open
It's
it.
not closing.
It's
That's
not
not
closing.
that's
No.
not closing.
It's
That's-
sending a proposal, right? So they're going to open it, they're going to look at the price, and they're going to close it. They may decide to do it, they may not, but there's literally zero nurturing. And if, depending on what kind of mood they're in, you just never know how it's going to hit them. And so,
Right.
basically, we were in a position where we had to have closing calls with these clients, because the new system that we were using to build the quotes, it was weird. The
Okay.
way it structured the pricing made it look really, really odd. So there's a sign up fee, a setup fee, and then there's a monthly fee. And the way it was positioning that was it made it look really, really weird.
Okay.
And we actually had one client that was really confused when she was opening the proposal, and it was like, whoa, why is this setup fee so high? And she didn't even see that there was a discount to eliminate the setup fee. So it was basically an existing client for Chris, and because of that, we already had everything we needed for that setup fee. Everything was basically set up. And so in that situation, the whole point I'm driving to is my mind has completely changed. I want to be lazy, and I want to sell things at 3 a.m. just without doing any work, But we're
Sure.
talking about high dollar deals here. That works with a low dollar service or product or whatever, right? But
Correct.
when you're talking about something that's over, $3,000-$5,000, I think it needs a personal touch. So
Yeah.
again, I'm looking back through what we had done 10 years ago, and I'm like, I'm reading some of the proposals. I'm just like, no wonder we had such an amazing closing rate. There was a 2-year stretch where there was one deal that we didn't close. It was insane. It was a crazy time. It was great. Don't get me wrong. But now knowing what I know about automation, about streamlining things, and then combining that with like a little bit of AI, right? But also the closing process, right?
Right.
I feel I don't want to. I just feel really good about where we're headed, right? But I was just thinking through that whole closing process of like, a lot of times people will just be like, well, just send me the quote. I think you have to really, really push back against that. You have to be like, I'm happy to send it to you, but let's hop on a call right after you look at it because I want to explain to you the pricing, right? You're
Yeah.
just going to really, really reduce your rate of closing if you just send it to them and walk away. Um, so
Or
I don't
you're
know.
not closing. There's no
You're not closing.
closing at that
Yeah,
moment. You're out.
you're getting
Uh,
lucky.
well, the thing is that even if they come on board, they're coming on board. The likelihood of them coming on board with no questions is zero.
It's zero. Yeah,
So really, you're doing them a disservice, even if they come on and you're like, man, that was so easy. I just sent them the thing and I sent them the price and they did it.
yeah,
I'm not saying, oh man, maybe the price could have been higher for no, maybe
right,
it could have been lower for who cares?
right,
Like the price was fine. It wasn't about the price. And they understood what they were buying, which is also good. Maybe they understood.
right.
But in their
That's it.
mind,
Yeah,
the price they were paying justified what they believed they were getting,
right.
which
But
could
see,
be far from the truth or right real close to it.
and that's exactly
So,
it. That's why even if we have a price up front that's is listed on the website, we like I'm at the point now where I sign a proposal, you sign a proposal, even if it's not a legally binding contract or anything like that. It's just literally so you know how much you're paying and what you're getting for that, and I know what I'm expected to do. Does that make sense?
uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
You just
And
have to put things in
that's what
writing.
needs to happen, really. I can tell you just based on that little story with the client that was like, why is this thing so high for they may have said no, no, thank you,
Right.
not realizing they got all that for free. Like it was
Right.
already included. It was just we're not charging you for that.
Well, and then you
That's
can
a
make the case
benefit that
for
you're getting for no additional cost. But they
exactly.
didn't understand that, so you might have lost her. And
But
so
there's
it's like
also an
at that
art.
point,
Yeah, there's an art in how you display those things because you could say, okay, well, there's a $3,000 setup fee, and we discounted it to $1,500 or something, right? 50% off. We're running a special, for new clients, whatever it is. But if you don't show that discount, they don't feel that value. If you just put $1,500, that's kind of like the lazy way to do it. Then they think they got $1,500 of value and they paid for every penny of it. Whereas if you show them in that line item, like it's $3,000, we're discounting it by 50%, they immediately go, oh, I'm getting something extra here. And so
right,
again, it really comes down to circle
perception.
back. And it's about a relationship. It's about clear communication in that relationship, which is again, we're going back exactly to, where you come from. Right. And
Man,
so,
I'll tell you, we're getting some work done at our house. And
uh-huh,
I knew I had a number range in my mind that I would be comfortable to spend. If it falls in this range, I'd say yes. If it's too low, I'm going to question it. And if
right.
it's too high, I'm also going to question it. And we messaged the contractor, hey, give us the estimate or whatever. And he's like, absolutely. What time's good for you? I'm like, email it over.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no problem. Well, what time is good for you? Because I've got a couple more questions that I need answered before. Oh, well, what are those questions? I need to talk to you in person about them. I need to ask you in person because if I plug it into the system, it might get convoluted or whatever. And I'm like, that's an interesting close. Come on over. So he came over and he's like, here's the thing, here's the description, and he walked us through without ever showing us the total. Because I would
Right.
have flipped through and looked to the total. And he
Right.
went through all of the things and he's like, does all of this sound right? And I was like, yeah. Unfortunately, each and every one of those things was at the top of my window for my understanding of what I was getting for each of those things.
Right.
And he's like, so the total comes to this. I'm like, ooh, man. And he's like, but here's what I can do. And then he put the discount in person,
There you go.
down 12% or whatever it was. And I will tell you that my range was here. This side would be
Right.
too low.
Right.
This side is too high without questions. And the number came in here and then was discounted to here,
Yep.
which was still this far above what I was comfortable paying, except for that the conversation we had and the explanation moved my comfort level to there,
Right.
although it didn't move my budget, but it
Right.
moved my comfort level. Like I was like, I agree, that is for what we're getting, it is worth more than we're paying.
Right.
So it justifies the cost. So yeah, I'm okay to do it. So, and then I'm like, well, is there a way to pay less? And he's like, yeah, we can eliminate this. And I was like,
But then you don't want to.
and I was like, that's fair. Is it worth? So now the job is the other stuff. And now it all boils down to is how bad do we want this one thing that pushes us over the budget we were thinking about before?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, we still want that. Or no, we don't care.
Right.
I'll leave that up. We haven't finished the job yet. So it doesn't matter. I know we haven't done it yet. So, but we're likely going to do it. I can tell you that because it's just a small little window. But anyway,
Well, I feel like all of that is straight out of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, it's all really right back to basics, and it's like, but you have to close. He closed us. Had he sent the invoice, I'd have been like, it's too much.
Nope. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what's crazy is when he insisted on coming over, I was like, he's coming over to close me. But I also want to be comfortable paying whatever it is I pay.
Right.
So he's now coming over to sell himself, his experience, and his ability to do the job to a level that matches my comfort and expectation.
Yeah.
And when he did that, I was like, bro, you just justified it. Let's do it.
Well, and I think he did a good job by saying, well, I'm going to have more questions, right? I want to make sure we go together, through it together and everything. But I think the other thing you can add to that is like just the, I don't know, the personal touch, right? Like, because I know, like, we don't want to, when you're in sales, you don't want to feel like, okay, I'm the scumbag that's going to try to sell them the undercoating on the car, or at this point, the extended warranty.
Right.
But if you can position it and really, again, this is where you have to build trust, right?
Yeah.
Say, look, I am not going to high pressure sales you, right? I promise to not pressure you. I just simply want to run you through each of the things and show you where the value is in each item so that you understand it. And that's just not something that we can put in a written proposal.
Right.
Simple as that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the customer's always right. And you have to bend to what they want. If they just absolutely say no, you probably
well,
want
too, that's and that leads us back. So that's will be a full circle. We'll end it. But I think that leads us back to the idea that you could plug that written proposal into the NotebookLM and have those people discuss it and talk about it. So then they go, oh, that makes sense. So even if you couldn't go, you could send them that recording of what it is and use that plus, let's say, your code of ethics, your standard of operations, your whatever. So it knows your entire framework. And then this is the thing. And then it'd be like, based on that, this is talking about that. And this is why that's important. This is why you should consider that. And at least it's just them discussing your information and your stuff. And realistically,
a way to build a frequently asked questions section too.
Yeah. And if you're a person and you're like, I don't want to talk to somebody, but I want to hear somebody talk about it. You know what I mean? He or she can listen to that, them discuss the proposal on the way to work and be like, that's a different way of looking at it. That makes sense to me. I've got some more questions I want to ask you. And then they can ask questions. And then you've got that next step.
That's funny because you could almost position it like, here, we fed this into an AI that is completely unbiased and neutral. And here's the output, just to give you more context. That's
Right.
incredibly interesting.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't know. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to utilize or to leverage these AIs. So anyway, I'm excited. I know there's a bunch more. There's a bunch more we could talk about, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like we should probably wrap this
We
episode up
should.
this week. I know we're going to talk about some more stuff. We're not calling it after hours. We're calling it
Grow an online business. Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were calling growing online business the after hours discussion of minding your business.
I think that that's probably too long. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think
So one
we
is
talked
the
about it
title,
last
one is
week.
the description. Yeah. So anyway, well, fair enough. Let's grow
Yeah,
an
I
online business.
honestly don't remember what we talked about in Grow an Online Business or what we talked about at the end of the Minding Your Business episode. But basically, what we have been doing is after hours behind a paywall, right?
Right.
We are now taking that. We've taken the existing episodes and thrown them over to Grow an Online Business, which was your podcast, which actually started this whole
The
podcast
entire
from
thing.
the two of
Yeah,
us,
this
right?
entire
Years and years
endeavor.
ago. And we're reserving after hours for episodes like we had, like episode 35, where it's more of like interviewing a business owner, right? Interviewing an entrepreneur. That'll be kind of like our special episodes. And there'll be more of that to come. But
Yeah. And so
now
those will be over there. And then the nuts and bolts. We are talking about, oh my gosh, we did this with the AI. That in that podcast, it's actually us doing the work.
and not behind a paywall.
Right.
Right.
Just to listen. Just
yeah.
open.
So if you're looking for that, we will definitely put a link in the description. It's called Grow an Online Business. And I believe if you search Grow an Online Business, Aaron Gerald's, it will show up.
You can pretty much search. Yeah. And if you search Grow an Online Business, I'm on the first page.
There you go.
And I'm usually in the first 4. You'll see it. We're going to update the artwork and the thumbnail or whatever it is, the album cover.
Yeah,
I think it is called. We're going to update that so that it makes more sense and it ties into minding your business. We've got an idea for that, which we'll touch on in the next in the next episode of Grow an Online Business. We will discuss artwork for the podcast. Cool. So I think that's all I've got. If that's all you've got, then
yeah, that sounds good. Well, until next week, mind your business. Hey, thanks for listening to the Minding Your Business podcast. Your hosts are Aaron Gerals and me, CJ Jolliffe. If you want to find out more about us or when we're going live or follow us on socials, just go to our website, mybpodcast.com. And again, thank you so much for listening.